what led you to want to pursue school psychology from being a social worker? What opened that door and gave you that thought?
Well, part of it is I was working in the mental health side of social work. And so one of the things that is not always known about social workers is that they can become licensed to do mental health services in most states. And many states, social workers provide a lot of the mental health services and have that licensure. And so that is a big part of what I was doing early on. The other reality is that I had young children at the time, and I heard about working in schools, and I thought, well, that's a great idea. Why don't I do that? And so that was the beginning of school social work, which is very different from just social work. And I learned that. I thought, I could just apply and become a school social worker. And I needed to go back and do some different coursework, and I needed some different areas to focus on to be a school social worker. So even though I had, at that point in time, I had the licensed clinical social worker credential, and I was providing all kinds of mental health services, I did need to go back and get additional coursework, additional pieces of education in order to become a school social worker.
Great. And then when you decided, okay, now I want to be a school psychologist, what brought that idea on?
Well, as you're learning about me from this podcast, things just sort of happen along the way. So I was in the schools and I loved the work hours. You go to work at 7:30, 7:45, you get off at 3:30. So for my life, and my kids were very involved in sports at the time, it was great. And so somewhere in the school social work position that I had working with the students, someone said, you can go back and get trained to also be a school psychologist. And I thought, well, that's a great idea. Why don't I do that? And I had been at meetings with school psychologists, and I thought, oh my goodness, I love what they talk about. I want to learn more about that. So what's important to know is I then went back for an additional 2 years of school to get that school psychology certification. And so I was lucky enough at the time to be able to stay in my school district and do the internship part of that program. But I sort of was a school social worker. I was a school social worker while I went to school to become a school psychologist. And in the very beginning of switching roles, I actually did both jobs in some positions. And then I primarily moved on to mostly doing the evaluation side, and the social workers did the mental health side. But that's how I got there. So it was another 2 years of going back and obtaining the coursework so I could do all the different assessments and learn how to do those. So that's how I got to have both of those credentials.